Welcome back to another Women Talking Wellness. It's an hour of your time that offers you some knowledge, insight, and often a little bit of the humour of some of my favourite women in the whole wide world. Now, as always, if you're watching on the replay, you are a really welcome part of the conversation. So give us a shout out in the comments and do please share any of the big lessons from our conversation that you get today. I've got a feeling there's going to be a few what the fuck moments in this one. Um, so you might not know it was a full moon this week, and on Monday night I stood out in my garden in the cold, bathed in the moonlight, and I found myself taking stock as we so often do at the end of the year. And I realized how fortunate I am to know so many incredibly inspiring and powerful people who've supported me through my own sometimes quite fraught, often hilarious journey up till now, whether they're aware of it or not. Now, tonight, my guest is one of those people. We met more than a decade ago, and although our paths haven't actually crossed in person since then, we've been connected by that invisible thread that holds all of our special friendships together. And well, obviously, we're both on Facebook as well. Now, among her talents, she is a marriage and family therapist. She works in mental health as a mental health and wellness coach. She's a hatha yoga teacher and she also leads people in mantra meditation. And if that's not enough for you, she also happens to be a kick ass river guide. She brings with her 3 decades of practice and experience that allows her to meet her clients where they're at and find new avenues for transformation. Now, I hope that's whetted your appetite a little bit for tonight's conversation. This evening, we're going to be talking about some of the ways that you can adopt better mental habits in these challenging times. And she's going to introduce you to a Hawaiian healing art known as Hooponopono. So please give a very warm internet welcome to my beautiful guest tonight, Kresta Painter. Welcome, Kresta. Yay! I feel like I should have applause or something when people come on. I always feel it's a bit lame when it's just me going yay.
Maybe everybody give a little snap, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
exactly.
That was probably one of the most gracious introductions I've ever witnessed. So thank you. It's such a heartfelt experience, like you said, to even though not physically have crossed paths, but we've sort of been orbiting each other's universe. And myself, as well as you, have been a huge proponent of just empowering women and finding a way to navigate through life that just feels good and showing up as your best self, even when some days you do better than others.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of us are experiencing at the moment the days that are not so good. I think for many of us are outnumbering the days that feel good. And I don't know where you guys are in Hawaii right now, but certainly here in Scotland, we're kind of midway through a second round of almost lockdown. It's kind of weird. We're sort of in lockdown, but we're not quite there. And I know that's impacted people a lot because we've been through this 7 or 8 months of not being able to interact, not being around our family, our friends, doing the things that we normally do, and thinking that we were just coming out the other side of it. And now we're back in it again. I think a lot of people are really struggling with that on a mental level. And of course, here in Scotland, we have about 3 seconds of daylight at the moment. So we wake up in the darkness. There's about 2 hours at lunchtime where there's a little bit of sunshine, and then it's dark again. And I'm sure that's having an impact on a lot of people too. So I'm really excited to just dive into our topics for tonight, and maybe we just begin with a little bit of background on you. I know I've spoken in the introduction about well, just the incredible list of things that you're able to do. But it would be lovely just to get a bit of your story, Kresta, and what's kind of brought you to where you are now.
Absolutely. First off, I have to say I'm bringing you some aloha and some sunshine. It's a balmy 80 degrees outside. My air conditioner is right there. Kauai is from this tiny little island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here in just a moment. But wherever you are, everyone who's watching, just imagine a warm tropical island in the middle of the ocean and beams of bright light and love coming at you, right? We're very lucky. We have very few COVID cases. But Kauai is really a unique island in that even prior to COVID, we had a really high suicide rate. Right now, we have probably the highest unemployment rate in the United States. We have a huge houseless population, and some really unique challenges from a cultural perspective and just being a rural island. So we all have a unique COVID experience happening right now. And just speaking to what you shared about, a little, if there was depression, maybe there's more, maybe there's now a little bit of depression because we're really disconnected from hugs, from smiles, and we're human beings. We like to puppy pile. We want to be around our people, right? And then also some social anxiety, which comes in, right? Because we're not, when we do go out, it's kind of weird. It's different. So I'll loop back around to COVID, but I'll go back now, right? Like, how did I end up here? And how did I find Hooponopono? It's been just over 6 years. I was in the middle of a marriage that was falling apart and went down the Grand Canyon. Some people say, don't run away. I say, if it feels right, go for it. I ran away to the Grand Canyon and did a private trip on the river. And while I was there, I had a dream about Hawaii, or Hawaii in general. I was like, wow, is that somewhere that I need to go? Is that where I'm supposed, is that my next chapter? And really thought about it. When I got off the river, it took me about 3 weeks. And I bought a plane ticket, shipped my car, found a place to stay, and showed up with a suitcase, a backpack, and a surfboard, and said, okay, I'll see what happens. And very quickly found that there was a calling to Kauai. We call Kauai Mama Kauai. We call it the Garden Island. I often say it's really hard to be miserable in paradise, but you can be, especially when it's really, really hot and you haven't worn socks in years. Sorry, Lorna.
Yeah,
Are you
I just
socks
every reference to, to how beautiful it is on your island is it's just fueling my hate fire right now.
What I love about you, I'm stoking that fire, right? And really wanting to give listeners right now and you a sense of just how magical this place is, but how powerful it is from a spiritual healing perspective as well. So shortly after arriving, I found myself on the beach, and I don't remember who told me about Hooponopono, but I remember the first time I sat down and just said the phrases out loud and let go. And that was pretty amazing. So that's it in a nutshell. Does that answer your question?
I'll take it, yeah. We'll dig into this a little bit more. I imagine there's quite a few people who are watching this right now and they're thinking, what the heck is Hooponopono? Or maybe there's people who have heard of it but don't fully understand it. I know certainly for myself, my own experience of it, I discovered it probably about maybe 10 years ago, and it was a book that I read by I think it was Joe Vitale. Is that how I say his name?
Yep.
I came across this book. I liked the title of the book, and I went, yeah, fine, I'll read that. And I really kind of fell in love with this whole concept, but it probably is still taking me. I'm still working through my full understanding of it. Does that make sense? I get it at some level, but there are parts of Ho'oponopono that I still have some resistance around. I think that would be the correct way to say it. So maybe just explain, if you can, in the simplest of terms, what is it and why should we all be practicing this thing?
So the beauty is Ho'oponopono is really simple. It's so simple, it's silly. But the simplicity comes from the deep spiritual connection to um, Hawaiian history and the way that this culture um, would come together. Uh, because there was a belief that being sick or being unhappy was caused by breaking something called kapu, or spiritual laws, and that um, discomfort, disease, illness couldn't be cured or changed or shifted until the sufferer really sat with the transgression or leaned into the whatever it was. And then often there was a kahuna, a priest, there was a pule that happened, and forgiveness was sought from the family, from the community, from the gods, and for the person or somebody that there might have been an argument or a dispute. So that's sort of, it's, I think it's really important to remember that this is a practice that didn't have the it wasn't called Ho'oponopono until the early 19th century, but there was a process and a ritual for this community for probably hundreds of years prior to Nana Viri, who first coined the term Ho'oponopono. She wrote a book called Change We Must, My Spiritual Journey. So her name is Nana Viri, but she goes by Pukui. So she talked about her experiences and her observations of this practice here in Hawaii. And then it became even more popular by Hugh Len. Hugh, or Iha Keakala Hugh Len, really kind of made it become more popular. And then Joe Vitale, as you mentioned, is now sort of the cool guy that does all the awesome stuff. You can find all kinds of resources online. So this idea of Ho'oponopono, when you break down the language, which so many of you know that just our words are so powerful. What we say has a connection to our hearts and to our minds. And ho'o is, or Ho'oponopono is to make right. And we can say here, like, make it pono. That's not pono. Don't worry, if you're not wearing your mask, that's not pono. Bad, brother. Put your mask on. Right. So that word is actually used pretty often. So it starts really easily. It's and maybe you can say it with me. I'm sorry.
I can say it with you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I love you.
I love you.
And thank you. I'm grateful.
I love those words. I love those words.
They're
And
so. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's so valuable to maybe remember as well that when we talk about words, I think often the Western brain falls into this idea of the words that you say are the ones that are powerful, but equally powerful are the words that you think. And the ones that you think are perhaps even more sort of deadly because thoughts kind of slip in there without us being so conscious of the words. We know what we're doing, we're conscious of them, but the words that we think can be quite insidious in some ways because there's still things that slip in there, and so you don't necessarily have to say these words out loud, but repeating them in your mind is equally, if not more so, powerful.
There's so many ways to describe that self narrative is what we would call it in psychology, right? In yoga, the monkey mind.
Yep.
Those bastard monkeys.
Little monkey.
Monkeys. Calling it the bad neighborhood sometimes. Don't go there alone. Years ago.
Yeah, that's what's up there in my head.
circling the drain on the rat wheel, like that story that we tell ourselves. And years ago, somebody said to me, Kresta, I want you to imagine if every negative thought you've ever had is the size of a quarter, how big of a space would you need to store? And I'm 35, so I might be a little bit, at this point I'm 35, I might be a little bit older or younger than some of you. But in my mind, I'm like, I need like a football field. I need like a shopping mall, like maybe not a big mall, but I need, I need a pretty big store. And I was like, wow. And I was pondering that. And while I was still sort of thinking about that, the same person asked me, now, Kresta, tell me how big the space is where all your happy, positive thoughts are. And I immediately, Lorna, I was like looking in the junk drawer in my mom's kitchen. Full stuff in. Like, what does that mean? Like, what? And the juxtaposition of and the realization that the story, the song, the words that I'm telling myself really are not kind.
Yeah.
And the reason we hold on to negative thoughts so much more than positive thoughts, that there's a lot of theories that we could talk to about that, and that might be another another episode. But
Perfect.
negativity, when we hear it, we pull it to our hearts and we hold on to it. Sadness, fear, anything that feels threatening or scared or vulnerable, we hold it so tightly and so dear. But positivity, affirmations often fall at our feet.
We're like Teflon to them, aren't we? Just washes off. I know I've told this story before. I'm sure some of the guys watching have probably heard this, but when I worked as a therapist years ago, especially when I had just started out, when I was sort of like 19, 20 years old, and I was in the spa massaging people and, doing nails and things. If I saw 10 clients in a day and 9 people told me, because pretty consistently people would say, oh my God, that was the best massage I've ever had. Oh my God, Lorna, you're amazing. Lorna, you're the best. One person would maybe not even say something bad. They would go, yeah, it was all right. Oh, I could probably still tell you those people. I'm 47 years old, and I could still tell you the person that thought I was an okay therapist from like 25 years ago. But those 9 people that said something beautiful, it just meant nothing to me. That one person that was either mediocre or, wasn't really into it, that was the person that I would hold on to, and like you say, just kind of like let it absorb into everything. And by the end of a day, it wouldn't matter how many people had said something nice to me. I was a bad therapist. I don't really know why I did this job. By the time this had gone round in my head, I was resigning by the end of the day.
It's amazing how quickly your brain can hijack you. And the brain is such a cool thing. I mean, it's a human supercomputer. Unfortunately, there's a few design flaws. There's kind of a warranty, but not really. Our brains are hardwired to look for threats, to fall into confirmation bias. And
Yes.
we have these old beliefs about ourselves, or even new ideas about ourselves, that sometimes are not very kind. And often they're not true, right? I'm not worthy. I'm unlovable. I'm not smart enough. I'm ugly. Whatever our core belief is, that story that just sort of plays in the background, is truly unfortunate sometimes. When we get really good at becoming the witness and the observer of our conversations. And mind you, right after this person asked me to imagine how big of a space I needed for my negative thoughts, they then asked me to keep track. And have you ever done this? See the little hash marks, you know? So I started, probably got up around 8 o'clock, maybe, 7:30. And by about 9 a.m., I was up to like 20 negative thoughts. And it changed my life. It changed my life when I realized that the power of what I was telling myself could direct how much joy and happiness I had in my life. So there's that part about who we are and what we can do, and neural networks and neural pathways, which are awesome. Really, I love geeking out on neurobiopsychology. But the more often we say negative thoughts, we dig a deeper trench, a bigger trail in our brains. And those neural pathways are pretty amazing. If we want to change them, we have to recreate them. And that takes time. That's like learning a new sport. Have you ever tried surfing?
I
Have you
think you know that I have, and I realized when I was learning to surf, there's a reason why I'm a diver, because I spent way more time under the water than I did on top of it.
All right. So we got that, right? Learning how to think differently, learning how to practice, mantras or rituals or self-care it's a sport. It's a lifelong process that you will never perfect. It's a constant polishing. And this idea that if we sit quietly with ourselves and forgive ourselves for, I say, being blunderful, wonderful, blundering wonderfully, or flossum, I really like. I have a few flaws, but I'm awesome. You write those down, Lorna.
So writing those down, like I can feel a whole yoga class around those worlds right now.
Yeah, wonderful and blossom. And when you get to those points in your life where, even if it's something simple, the end of the day of working and being depleted because that one person just didn't walk away feeling wonderful, um, or something major, like a loss or grief. And that piece for me, I think a lot of people don't realize that divorce and breakups are also an expression of grief and letting go. And when I sat down on the beach and said these words to myself, it was a heart opening experience that started a whole new process of exploring who I am and what I want, my values, my beliefs, and what I wanted next in my life. And that's a beautiful thing. The repentance of being, I'm just sorry it didn't work out. I'm just sorry that things are what they are right now, because it's hard, right? It's hard right now for so many people. Like, I have tears springing to the back of my eyes because I have clients that are looking at, losing their homes or not having enough food for the holidays and those kinds of things. I'm just sorry. And that process of forgiveness and forgiving yourself for maybe feeling powerless, or feeling victimized, or so vulnerable and so tender that it's just uncomfortable. Right?
Yeah.
And the I love you. Whew, it's hard to love ourselves, and to find an empathy for whatever place or spot that we are in our own journey, and just being gentle and having grace of knowing that it's just where you are, right?
Yeah. It's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to say I love you and feel that emotion as well. Anybody can say those words, right? But to say them and mean them is it's so challenging at times, and to stand in front of a mirror, to look into your own eyes. I find this a very powerful exercise to do at times that I've been really struggling with very negative self-talk, spiraling downwards. To be able to stand in front of a mirror and say with genuine feeling, I love you, that is yeah, that brings tears to my eyes. When, I mean, anybody watching, when was the last time you actually did that? When was the last time you looked yourself in the eye and said the words I love you, and actually felt the emotion that goes with it? I bet you it's been a while.
There's some real sweetness in there when we can get to that place, right? It's so sweet and so tender and open and vulnerable. And also there's a heart connection that just expands. Once we connect to ourselves, everything else expands, and falls away too at the same time. As many of you know, or probably already know, the practice of gratitude and just being able to look around and say, you know what? I'm really like, I used a new toothbrush today. It was magical. I'm so grateful for that. Finally, Costco got in the little things that go on top of I live on an island in the middle of the ocean, right? Like sometimes I can't, I had one day I couldn't find a Sharpie to save my life. There were no Sharpies for sale on
But
finding
it's
gratitude.
the little things that actually,
Yeah, if you can't sit there and be like, I'm so grateful for, COVID and the silver lining and, home, whatever, when life is so overwhelming, look for the little things, the little wins all add up. So, that gratitude is just, knowing, and maybe if you sit in Ho'oponopono, when you get to that gratitude part, could just be the vision that, there's this place in the middle of the ocean that is sending out aloha and Ho'opono energy to the rest of the world, right?
yeah.
That connection. Grateful for the opportunity to maybe even someday come here because you've never even heard of Kauai. I don't know. I don't even know who's listening.
We all want to go, I tell you that, after everything that you've just said today. Um, we've got a few new people that have just hopped on. So if you have just joined us, then hello and welcome. I'm having a ball talking to Kresta Painter tonight about some of the ways that we can adopt a better mental habit during these tough times. And we're getting into the nitty gritty of Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian healing practice for conflict resolution and cultivating forgiveness. So make sure that you give permission so that I can see your comments. Say hi, and remember that Kresta is really happy to take questions, so you can drop them in the comments too. I've got Amy and Sally are with us tonight. So hi, ladies. I didn't get a chance to say hello to you earlier, but Sally's just said she is finding it really hard to let go. She misses her dad. Oh, and I know it's your wedding really soon. Her wedding is coming up 12/12. Oh my God, it's really soon. And she would give anything to see him again. He died 4 years ago, so she's struggling with that release. Is there anything that you could maybe advise Sally, or is there anything that you could help her with?
Oh, Sally, first I want to say congratulations. 12/12/2020. Is that your wedding day? That's
Auspicious.
beautiful. That's a great number. When Lorna said it, I was like, oh, great date. Ooh. But then the flip side of that, right, is there's this huge celebration, but there's also such a heartbreak and heavy. I can feel the yearning, even through Lorna explaining to me what's going on of missing your dad and wanting to feel that connection with him. And grief is a really interesting and unique process for everybody. Um, and it's a lifelong process. And our relationships, that physical relationship where we can hear somebody, physically hold them, when we lose that and transition into more of an energetic relationship, it can be a little bit hard. I'm not sure what the circumstances are of your father passing, but I hear that you truly miss him. And I want you to know that energetically, he's still very, very much present. And the the connection, let's talk about that connection, that tethering of people that have passed. Even just imagine the cord, what it looks like, how long it is. Is it heavy? Is it worn? Is it sparkly? Does it glitter? Is it a rope? Is it a cable? Think about what that connection is, what it looks like with your dad. And then also recognize that connection, we have negative and positive connections, and see if you can get the love to flow through. Just the pure love that genetically your cells can hear, right? Your body can hear and feel your dad. Your body can feel and hear your dad. The sadness of, I'm so sorry, dad. I'm going to really miss you. And forgive me for maybe being angry or frustrated or disappointed that you're not here. Or maybe there was something that was left unsaid. And I love you so much. Thank you for reminding me just how important you were and are now, then, and forever. Those are my words, Sally. But you'll find your voice for your own connection with Dad. I'm just speculating what you're, I wish I could see your face and really just even hold your hands energetically from here while you move through this process. And if you can say that over and over, and each statement might change a little bit, right? But it's always, I'm sorry, forgive me, I love you, thank you, I'm grateful. It's that, and we just keep saying it and saying it and saying it until we feel the shift. And it does come, it does happen.
That's so beautiful. Sally, I hope that that's helped a little bit. And anybody else who's watching, obviously, you can apply this to any and every situation. Sally's just said she lights a candle and she keeps seeing a robin. Thank you for your kindness, your words. You've really helped me. Beautiful. Thank you. Gosh, one of the things I am so enjoying about these conversations that I'm having every week is being reminded of things. Do you know that phrase where you say, I've forgotten more than I ever knew? I kind of feel in that situation just now where I keep having these conversations about things and I'm like, oh yeah, I I know this. I know this helps in situations. I know this tool. Why have I not used it?
Are we getting to the resistance part?
I think we might be. No, I think in my case it's absolute stupidity. I get distracted by like life and I forget the stuff that actually, you know what? I know how to feel better in a situation. I know how to use this tool. I know how to make things work. And I just, I'm just sitting here listening to this and going, yeah, I need to start doing more of this again.
Lorna, there is something about the way that you describe your process. I'm like, you sound so funny when you say it's absolute stupidity. And then there's also this other side of like, that's really mean to say. Like, it's not absolute stupidity. It's being busy, right? And and that resistance isn't absolute stupidity because there's a lot of meaning in there of why we're resistant to self-care or taking a time out. And I think it goes into perfectionism and social norms and things, gender norms that we've been taught that we have to go, 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 go. We've forgotten how to schedule our lazy.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know if you put out blocks of time on your calendar that says be lazy or do nothing.
I have do nothing time, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I give myself permission to do nothing every single day. But weirdly, because I mean, you've known me for a long time. I'm quite a sort of regimented individual. And if I don't schedule my do nothing time, then it won't happen. I don't know if that kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. It's not quite as organic as it could be.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. I think that perfectionism, right? Like there's some perfectionism in there. There's like, which I'm recovering from perfectionism. I now just try to strive for excellence. I relapse. It's bad. Like if
Isn't it terrible when we've got to say things like, I'm a recovering perfectionist?
I didn't realize how hard these standards and these expectations that I set for myself. And, people can talk about Hooponopono, but sitting down and actually doing the practice, that's hard. It's so simple, but it's so hard. And so the invitation is to consider scheduling your lazy is the first place to start. You're already there, the do nothing time. The other piece is lowering the expectations and remembering that the little wins, even if you just say it once and not 108 times, if, you could do Ho'oponopono with mala, right? With the mala bead. That you remember it doesn't matter how little or how big of an effort, it all counts the same. And sometimes really big effort counts less. In graduate school, I was very driven to be the best student and graduate with honors. And I'm so proud that I did that, but I really dragged myself through the coals and let my own self-care kind of fall by the wayside, which is really a bad idea for a mental health therapist. And then I realized, and Lorna, you'll love this, right? We went to yoga teacher training together in Thailand, where we practiced yoga all day, every day for a month, right? And we probably practiced all day, every day for months and years leading up to that point. And then suddenly I realized that I don't have to do an hour and a half or 2 hours of Ashtanga or Hatha or whatever. I can do 3 minutes of heavy breathing and I'm good. But for a long time, I had to do the breathing, I had to do all of it. And all we really need to do is a little bit to make it right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that applies to everything again across the board. I'm seeing it a lot right now, and I'm sure you probably are as well. Everything moved online at early part of this year, and in the beginning, I saw lots of people coming to classes, showing up, doing their thing, great. And as the year has gone on, we've got to December now, and I've got people messaging me and saying, I just can't face doing an hour of yoga after I've spent all day sitting in front of my computer in my house on my own, whatever. And I keep reminding people, and actually one of the things we're doing over the month of December is lots of short classes rather than 1 hour classes. So there's like little half-hour ones, and there's sort of 45 minutes and things. And it's exactly what you're saying, and I'm so quoting from this this week. Like you say, it doesn't matter if you sit and do a half-hour practice, or an hour or 90 minutes or whatever. Just taking 5 or 6 deep breaths, that might be what you need today. That might be all you need to do today.
Well, what we really need to stay alive right now is our breath. Truly. So let's dig into that a little bit more, and then we'll circle back around with a last little piece about Ho'oponopono and letting go and cutting that aka, that negative connection, which also is our nervous system that is struggling. Right? When we're thinking negative thoughts, we have a lot of stress. There's a negative cascade of neurotransmitters and hormones that's flooding our bodies. And that's sometimes hard to stop or stem that flow of just negativity or pain or hurt or discomfort, whether it's chronic pain or stress or financial issues. The beauty about our breath and how it's connected to our nervous system is it's an innate, already existing tool to shift what is happening internally in your body. And emotions are connected to hormones, and our hormones are connected to emotions. So we can go, in Hawaii, I can go about a month without any food, right? I don't move around a lot because it's so hot sometimes. It's not like I have to go out and chop wood to stay warm. I could probably go about a month without food. I could only go a couple days without water. But with my breath, my body knows instantly if I'm not breathing. Like, just stop breathing for a second. You can feel it. You're like, There's an instant message to your brain, she's not breathing. And then when I do take a breath, my body's like, oh, okay, I'm safe. Literally, your breath tells your brain that you're safe. So if you're able to take an inhale and exhale, just a few of them, as you know, that's the first place to really get present and show up, to process or to let go of whatever it is and shift what's you're struggling with or what you're carrying with. It's so good. It's so good. Every
Why
single cell in your body needs oxygen.
why is it so challenging at times when, like, for example, you're in a place where perhaps you're feeling anxious? I think this is something that a lot of people have experienced this year. And quite simply by taking a couple of really deep breaths, you know you're going to be able to shift out of that anxiety. And yet, why is it so hard for us to take those breaths? Even when we know it's going to be good for us, why don't we do it?
Gosh, it's such a good question. There's 100 theories that we could, so much research behind, what the resistance, and it comes down to saying yes and practicing saying yes to yourself and reminding yourself, whether it's with a post-it or a picture or a certain type of music or something that's ritualistic where you practice just taking that moment. I like to make it fun, and with a lot of my clients, I just start yawning because it's contagious.
I'm fighting. Oh,
you're fighting it, aren't you? Oh.
Stop.
I have tears. Like, there's a release that happens when we yawn. And your body does that even without your permission, right? Like when you need to yawn, like that's your body's natural way of releasing tension and stress. So if you have a hard time saying yes, when your body decides it's tired and wants to yawn, be like, oh, I'm releasing right now, and see if you can get into it, because it's a cue for your own body to let go, and it's happening subconsciously, neurologically, and you're not even aware of it. But now you are. Now you know, and you can't unknow what you already know, right? You can't unlearn what you already know. So that yawn is a great place to start to practice going into that space and place. And like I said, just gentle reminders and giving yourself grace in those moments. And also, have you ever sat there and thought, maybe I should just do a little bit of stretching? Maybe I should get up and just take a walk, but you don't.
Yeah, I'm holding my hand up to that. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, yeah,
I should go get a glass of water, but you don't. You click back onto whatever it is you're reading or scroll on the internet. And in those moments, instead of offering yourself shame and judgment for not doing it or for, even saying no, just be curious about it. Like, wow, isn't that interesting? Like, I think I should get up and take a 5-minute walk out to the mailbox, but I don't want to. Why is that? And see if you can just explore it as a curious witness and observer of the process and the weirdness of the brain and the fascination of this human supercomputer that has a couple design flaws. And see if that shifts it for you.
Sally says that she uses HALT. I've never heard of this. You might have done. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired.
Yes, I love HALT. Oh. I like halted. I like to add dehydration at the end, because often, especially here in Hawaii, I see it. Well, we don't have any tourists right now because we're on lockdown, but I see kids show up for vacation and families show up for vacation. And by about 2:00 in the afternoon, I will see families with kids, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa. They're sunburned, they're salty, crusty, sandy, and they're dehydrated. And they're all fighting. And they're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, dehydrated. Hungry, right? Everybody knows hangry. Angry, That's a tough one. And anger is actually a really great topic. Imagine anger being the surface emotion, like an iceberg. Like what's above the surface is the anger, but what's below the surface is what's really going on. And usually there's guilt, shame, embarrassment, frustration, any number of feelings. Tired, sleep deprivation, not getting waking up refreshed. Nobody likes that, right? Hungry, angry, lonely. Hungry, angry. Oh, I forgot lonely. We're human beings. And I mentioned earlier, I'm like, we want to be in a puppy pile. We want to be connected. We want to connect, not be in conflict. And then the water piece. Literally, nobody's drinking enough water.
I just feel at this moment that I should take a sip.
So actually another really great way to change habits. I wanted to start drinking more water. So interestingly enough, I talked about my toothbrush earlier today. If you pair a new habit with an existing habit, you're much more likely to be successful in integrating it into your life. So if you get up in the morning and have a cup of coffee, when you take your first few sips, you could do a Hooponopono, right? You can pull in new behaviors with existing habits, and that can be really, really helpful.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Oh, so I wanted to drink more water. So I now have a Brita water filter in my bathroom. So after I brush my teeth, I just chug a little bit more water. You already take a sip anyway, right? So I've really changed and shifted just how I feel throughout the day by staying hydrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, Sally. I love Halt. Thank you for sharing.
My water habit is fueled by having one of these within arm's reach everywhere. If I don't fill up a jug of water first thing in the morning, it goes on the desk, and I will drink away, and usually I drink about 3 of those jugs throughout the day. If I don't do it, and there are days when I just can't be bothered filling up that jug, I'll be fine. I'll get some water later. I can get to 5 o'clock in the evening and realize that I've had like, I don't know, like half a glass of water or something, and how do you even survive like that? So as long as I've got a jug, or if I'm traveling, I've always got a fillable water bottle with me, and that's what keeps me accountable, I guess, in the water habit. So if you are struggling with your water habit, I would definitely recommend just have something that makes it really easy for you to get to, because certainly for me in my house, because obviously we live in a vast mansion here at Lorna Green Yoga Towers, the walk from the dining room table to the kitchen is apparently just too strenuous for me to deal with.
I'm going to invite you to just create a visual in your mind when I offer you this statement. Your brain shrinks when it's dehydrated. As a river guide, as an outdoor expedition leader and experiential education teacher for many, many years, hydration, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, dehydrated, out on the trail or out in the field, could be really dangerous. And we forget just some of those simple things. I'm telling you, just the little things are big wins, right? The little wins turn into big wins, and they add up. The practice of forgiving yourself, even when you get caught up in the whatever the negative self-narrative is that you're in, or and absolutely not to negate that what's happening for a lot of people is really, really tragic and so sad. And there's a lot of grief and loss there, that acceptance and letting go of responsibility for the bigger picture, but also being accountable for how you navigate through difficult times and build resilience by taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
The best way that you can navigate difficult times is through the basic processes. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with that?
I am. Yeah.
Right now, the majority of the world is struggling with safety.
Yeah.
more and more people are facing, not having shelter,
Yeah, just
um,
their basic needs are not being met.
food. And if you can eat, drink, sleep, and use the bathroom regularly, you're winning.
Yeah.
You're totally winning. Yeah. The rest of it, isn't going to happen if you don't have those things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. One of the things that because we're getting really short of time now. I can't believe how fast an hour goes. We did say when we were chatting about this before that we were just going to talk a little bit about how to find some humor in difficult times, how to laugh more when we are challenged. I think that's something that something
I,
that I find I kind of find challenging situations quite funny. I don't tend to get sort of stuck in the misery of it because I find our whole sort of human condition quite ridiculous at times. Like the whole thing is just it's like a really badly written sitcom, isn't it?
oh,
But I
no,
think
I have the best story for you.
oh, I want to hear it. I want to hear it. But so many people lose their humor when challenging times come up, and it's such a shame because we just laughter is such a healing thing. It's such a beneficial thing. So how do we get more of that in? Tell us your story.
Okay. Earlier in the session, you were talking about those days where you give a great massages. Everybody's giving you wonderful feedback, and that one person that didn't really appreciate necessarily what you'd offered, right? As a marriage and family therapist, I have clients that walk out of my office crying. I'm like, I'm a miserable person. Like, I'm not. Am I helping? I don't know if I'm helping. Not. I don't make all my clients cry. But they do, right? I mean, we talk about a lot of really
I would feel that I hadn't got my money's worth if I wasn't crying when I left your office.
good. That's good. But in any case, I had a client that I worked with, her and her family, that they were healing from domestic violence, post-traumatic stress disorder, a family history of, just she was trying so hard, and we were working so hard together, doing counseling and therapy, but also doing neurofeedback and really just a lot of work. Fast forward, I ran into her about a month ago. She's been in recovery. She's doing great. And she's like, I learned how to forgive myself and let go. That this one day. Do you remember, Kresta, when you had your skirt on inside out? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what? And then I remembered that I'd gone to work, just had a black skirt on. It was on inside out. And I noticed maybe like 3 clients in. And the tag isn't on the side, it's sticking out, but it's a black tag. But I'm so busy and the bathroom is so far away that I hadn't had a chance to like just strip down and switch my skirt the right way. Right. And this is a woman that just thought that I must have just totally had it together, right? That I would never wear my skirt to work inside out. And when she realized that, oh, well, Kresta goes to work with her skirt on inside out. And when she told me about it and pointed it out, I'm like, yeah, I know. And I just started laughing. I'm like, I know. Yeah, it's been on inside out all day. Luckily, I don't have on 2 different slippers, right? Like 2 different shoes here in Hawaii, because that's really common too, because everybody wears flip flops. And anyway, being able to laugh at that moment taught her that it was just okay to just show up the best that you can every day. And that was my best. Just happened to have my skirt on inside out. And I was okay with it. I was still working really hard. It didn't matter. This little thing, which oftentimes, like 20 years ago, I would have been mortified. Like, oh, these people must think I'm totally a loser. Who knows what the story would have been. But I really didn't care. I was like, yeah, and started laughing. So,
but isn't it great for your client as well it sort of circles back to what we were talking about with the perfectionism thing. to see this person that they obviously have a great deal of respect for, they're coming to you because they see you as someone who can help them in a particularly difficult situation. And if even this extremely talented person in front of them can put their skirt on inside out, oh, you know what? Everything, yeah, it's all right. I think that's great.
The world's not going to fall apart. Yeah.
No, well, funnily enough, I fell over in a class that I was teaching a couple of weeks ago, which ironically was a class all about balance. And
So, oh my gosh, Lorna,
my
there's
balance it wasn't beautiful. It wasn't beautiful. And what was really fun, in fact, I know I've told this story before, but before I put my videos onto into the main membership, they all get edited, just to make sure the sound is okay and so. And I was going through that video and I got to the bit where, like, I mean, I properly fell. Like, it wasn't even like a little bit of a wobble. Like, it was a full on from. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, I can't put that on on the membership. This is what editing's for. I'll just take that section out. And then something in my brain said, no, because that's where I was at that particular night. It doesn't make me any less of a teacher. It doesn't make me, it doesn't mean that I can't do my job.
That was flawsome.
Yeah.
That was so
wonderful.
Wonderful. You have to celebrate and keep celebrating. Those moments where we're just uniquely human.
Yeah.
Reminds everybody else that we're just showing up the best we can every day. And if we keep doing that, even if we falter or we don't shine quite as bright every single day, it's still perfect. It's still okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can you send me a link to that episode?
Yeah.
We make plans, we have expectations about how we're supposed to be, and man, yoga classes, that's where you should just really leave expectations at the door. When I first started teaching in Tokyo in Japan, I worked at a beautiful studio called Yoga Tree in Hiro, and I was so excited. I was going to teach inversions. We were going to practice handstands, and the pregnant lady and the sumo wrestler showed up. And I was like, oh, guess we're not going to do that, right? Letting go.
Yeah.
And that was probably one of the best classes I ever taught, and I had no idea what I was going to teach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Breathing. No. I probably taught a lot of breathing.
I was gonna say that was there a lot of breathing in that one. Love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. It's time to say a massive thank you to Kresta for just, well, quite honestly, entertaining us tonight. I did not expect anything less. I know I said this earlier tonight, and I say it pretty much every week, but wow, that hour just goes so fast. And I'm already sitting here in my head going through all of the things that I want to invite Kresta back to talk about. there's at least another 3 talks in this, at least. I always end up feeling super inspired and like I want to go and make a ton of changes to how I'm living and working and thinking. I don't know about you, I hope you are feeling it too. So thank you to Kresta. Thank you to you guys for your comments, for your interaction. Next week is the final Women Talking Wellness for this year, and we're going to end it on a high note. Well, a note at least. We're going to be joined by the very talented Charlotte McKechnie. She's an opera singer, an artist, and a director, and we're diving into the ways that we can tap into our true voice and how it can shift your confidence and help you to kind of explore your own personal power. So thank you so much once again for joining us, as always. I've loved the interaction. I've loved the energy. Kresta is all the way over in Hawaii, and it is literally just like having her sit in front of me, and it just feels so good. Knowing that someone has been positively impacted by these talks means the world. So keep showing up, keep giving us support, and looking forward to next week's talk and all the wonderful talks that are going to come up in 2021. So until next time, from my living room to yours, sending lots and lots of love.